I am sure that you have heard by now that over 90% of YouTube channels fail. It is such a commonly quoted statistic that it's basically cliche at this point. I have heard a wide variety of ranges. I have heard 90%, I have heard 99%, I've heard 97%, 95%. The point being that most YouTube channels fail. And when they're talking about failure, they're typically talking about not being monetized. In today's episode, I want to talk about why that is, because I think a lot of people use this statistic in very dishonest and self-serving ways. And I wanted to provide some context on why I think it's probably true that over 90% of channels are not monetized, but why it isn't as scary or dramatic as that statistic would make it sound. So why am I doing this episode? Well, it was originally prompted because people have been jumping into comments on my channel reminding me that over 90% of YouTube channels fail. Anytime I say anything remotely reassuring or grounding or measured about channel growth and working on something over time, people like to come in and be like, well, 97% of channels fail, 99% of channels fail. Like I haven't heard that before, like it's breaking news, obscure data from the far lands. Sorry. And I get it. One of the reasons that this statistic is so well known is it's been used on large YouTube how-to channels run by YouTube coaches to underscore and drive home the point that building a YouTube audience, especially to monetization levels, is hard. And you won't get any disagreement from me on that. It is difficult. It is hard. The statistic makes it sound like it's almost like a lottery though, which is not a good way to think about it. That YouTube is this weird kind of get-rich-quick lottery that you can put the right ball with the right number in it and then boom, you're a success. I mean, there are overnight successes and the planets do align for people who have a good concept, good packaging, good product. They hit something trending, everything goes well. But for the vast majority of people, that is not how it operates, and it is not the only way to be successful on YouTube. So the lottery framing is not helpful because of course people are going to make the best videos that they can. Like, people do not want to make horrible videos.
Not unless you're congenitally insane or irretrievably stupid, no.
It's always going to be tempered on where they are with skill and what their passions are. And I think that's realistic. I think that's human. And if we don't define failure as achieving monetization, then this statistic might not even be accurate. So let's talk about why it's difficult to grow a large YouTube audience, achieve monetization, and hopefully make a wage off it that you can live off one day. So the first barrier to entry is high competition. YouTube is a giant site. There are tons of channels. There are lots of videos being made by YouTubers. YouTube has no shortage of material. It is saturated as a market. Because of this, standing out is challenging, and it is especially difficult in the beginning when you're small to gain traction. The second barrier is sort of counterintuitive, and this is unrealistic expectations. A lot of people, as brand new YouTubers, come with really unrealistic expectations of success. They've seen some overnight viral hit, and they just assume that that is the norm with YouTube. They say, I can have 1 million subscribers in a year because of their unrealistic expectations. They think that's normal and that that's how everybody gets there. And when they don't get immediate growth within a video, 2 videos, 3 videos, they get discouraged and they quit. They just kind of think, oh, well, clearly I'm not good at this, because they went in there with unrealistic expectations. The third barrier that a lot of people run into is a lack of strategic thinking. A clear strategy. So especially if it's your first channel, if you're doing your personal channel, you don't have a niche or a value proposition to bring to people. I talk about this a lot, but when you're making content online and you're making money doing it, you have to think about where what you do and what you're passionate about actually overlaps with what people want. It's very easy to think about, oh, what would be fun to make as a video? And that can be great, but if it doesn't overlap with what viewers are interested in, you're not going to get anywhere. And so that complicates the picture. The fourth barrier is actually content quality. And it's interesting because a lot of the YouTube coaches and the people who levy the statistic start there. It is a factor that new YouTubers aren't going to be as skilled at the core skills of film production. Low production quality, lack of editing, poor editing, awkwardness talking to camera. The video quality is going to be a barrier. Now, the good news is the more that you do it and the more that you practice, both working on your own work and seeking out other YouTube content and studying what they're doing and comparing it to what you're doing and seeing where you can come up in quality, you're going to get better. But it is a barrier, video quality. Thankfully, it's one that you can work on. A lot of these are things that you can work on though, frankly. It's just going to take some time. And you always have to balance how much you're improving the quality of your videos with making sure that you stay consistent, and also making sure that you don't put too much pressure on yourself and have unrealistic expectations so that you quit, because quitting is the worst thing you can do. The next big barrier comes to the algorithm. So if you are unknown to the algorithm, they don't necessarily know what kind of viewers to show your content to. That is something that you can work on over time as you figure out what your value proposition is, as you come up with a strategy, as you try things and viewers are brought to your content. It does become easier to get a hit as you've had more hits, because YouTube understands what kind of viewer is going to enjoy your content. It is a huge challenge in the beginning. The next big barrier comes with persistence and adaptability. When it comes to YouTube, you need to be kind of stubborn, right? You need to stay making videos, stay focused on doing it, on working on getting something posted, on working on your skills, on staying engaged with the platform. You can't forget that you're a YouTuber when you're trying to do this. So there's almost like this stubbornness that needs to happen, this real single-mindedness in a way. However, at the same time, you need to be adaptable and flexible. So you can't be like, well, I'm going to do this one thing and I'm going to do it every single week until I get monetized, because what if you find that your viewers aren't into it? What if it's not resonating with people? You need to be able to look at your analytics and see what's working and what isn't, and double down on what's working in a way that's consistent with your values and feed your soul so you don't get burned out. But you do have to be adaptable and ready to pivot if the data is telling you something that you didn't foresee. And that mix of adaptability and persistence is very tough for people. And finally, perhaps one of the biggest barriers is how difficult it actually has become to monetize. So let's talk about it. If you're brand new to YouTube, you might not realize that it became significantly more difficult to monetize a YouTube channel in January 2018. That was when they changed the monetization requirements. So these days, if you're working in long form content, the two criteria that you need to meet in order to monetize your YouTube channel is 1,000 subs and 4,000 watch hours that have been accrued over the last 365 days of your channel. Now, the watch hours statistic does not apply to shorts if you're doing shorts. And with shorts, instead of the 4K watch hours, you need to have 10 million views over the past 90 days. And if you're doing a combo of shorts and long form, your shorts watch time will not count towards your long form 4K watch hours. So that's pretty tricky. Okay, so those are the current monetization guidelines. What were they like back before January 2018? Well, prior to that, you needed 10,000 views on your channel. That's it. No 10,000 views over X amount of days, no watch hour goals, nothing like that. On one hand, some people will go, well, 4,000 watch hours, that sounds a lot less than 10,000. 4,000 is less than 10,000, right? No, not at all. Actually, let me do some math and I'll demonstrate this to you, like how much more difficult that 4,000 watch hours is than the 10,000 views. So the average watch time on YouTube varies, but currently it runs between 3 and 4 minutes for just a regular channel on YouTube. So let's take that 4,000 watch hours. So let's be generous and say that you're averaging 4 minutes per view on your channel, which would be a good average watch time. So if you take that 4,000 hours and multiply it by 60, you'll get 240,000 minutes. And if you divide that by the 4-minute watch time, that means you need to get 60,000 views to get to 4,000 watch hours. 60,000 views over 365 days is a lot harder to get than 10,000 views ever with no time limit. I mean, it's 6 times as much and you had no time limit before. Way harder. Now let's be a little less generous and say that your watch times are running a bit shorter. You're more at the 3-minute mark. So you take that 240,000 minute total for the 4,000 watch hours and you divide that by 3. And in that case, you get 80,000 views that you need. That's even worse if you're trending 3 minutes. And obviously the further down you get, you're trending 2 minutes, lower watch times, it's going to be a lot more views. All of these are a lot more than 10,000 views. You have to have massively long watch times to match that 10,000 view prior mark, and you still have to do it within a year, not ever. Clearly, it's gotten at least 6 to 8 times harder to monetize your YouTube channel, even without the time limit, which I think adds another degree of difficulty. I would argue it's about 10 times harder to monetize your YouTube channel now than it used to be. And because of the time limit, I think the time limit has a huge psychological effect on people. I know it had it on me. It started making me rush and feel this sense of urgency that I don't think I would have normally felt if there hadn't been a time limit. Now, there really isn't a firm time limit. the way that it works is that those watch hours have to be over your last 365 days. Now, once you get to day 366, day one decays. It's rolling. You only lose the watch hours at the beginning as you go past a year, past earning them. So it's not quite as dire as it sounds, but it's still pretty psychologically punishing. And I know that that pressure to monetize within a certain time limit is profoundly demotivating. And if people give it a few weeks, a month, a few months, and they see that they are not on pace to achieve monetization, and a lot of people won't be, then it becomes very easy for people to quit. And I am willing to bet that a high percentage of that, more than 90% of people who fail, who don't achieve monetization, are quitting because of that. I think attrition is a huge factor here, and that is not something you're going to hear with people who are using those statistics to drive traffic to their YouTube coaching channels. And I think it's also kind of a disingenuous thing to define failure as monetized or not. I know a lot of people who have a YouTube channel and they're doing it for pleasure. I originally started my first channel, Our Moving Castle, because my husband and I, we were traveling the country in our RV and we wanted to document it, even just for us as a family. Now, I already did social media work for a living. I am an author with 7 books out. I have lots of followers elsewhere. I have an e-commerce business I run with some friends. I make my living online, so it made sense that while I was doing it, while I was learning YouTube, that I would try to turn it into another part of my business. But even without that, it was helpful and useful to our family to be able to document that. And I know a lot of people are in the same boat. Their YouTube channel is a passion project, and if it takes off, fine. If not, fine. And I don't think that those channels are failures. I think that's a really cruel way to talk about that. I don't think that everything has to be monetized and profitable to be worth doing in life. I think that is a joyless way to live your existence. And not only that, I know YouTube channels that are maintained by businesses where the actual channel isn't monetized within YouTube AdSense, but they drive customers to their core business through their YouTube channel. So they're making plenty of money off their YouTube channel, even though they're not monetized. Is that a failure? No. Even under the most capitalist lens, that is not a failure. So I think the real percentage of YouTube channels that fail, we're never going to know what that is. And I think that people quoting the statistic are often doing it out of a very self-serving aim to scare people and say that, oh, it's impossible, and oh, it's like a lottery, and I'm going to tell you what number you want to put on that ball so you can win and be the big winner take all. And you know, it is what it is. Everybody's out here hustling and doing their own thing, right? You know, I respect the hustle, but I see things differently. Anyway, it was great talking to you as always. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.